All right, so welcome to A Course in Miracles Satsang. Today we're going to be looking at Workbook Lessons 70 and 71. And we're going to do a meditation from one of those lessons. So let's get into it. Okay, you don't have to have the book if you prefer, because I'm going to be jumping around between those lessons. So I'm not going to be telling you what I'm reading from. So you might prefer to have the book there. You might prefer to just sit and listen. So lesson 70, my salvation comes from me. So what I'd like you to do, just for, say, 2 or 3 minutes, this meeting goes probably about an hour and a half today, and possibly a bit longer depending on, well, I don't know, generally between an hour and 2 hours.
Okay, thank you.
My salvation comes from me. So let's just sit for a couple of minutes and repeat that really just slowly to ourselves. So just take a couple of deep breaths and just repeat, my salvation comes from me. Okay, so I'm going to start to read this and go into a discussion about what this really means. My salvation comes from me. So for me, when I read the word salvation, when I first started the course, I really didn't like the word because it reminded me too much of religious speak, that, that I had to be saved, and that, if I didn't believe in Jesus, that I wouldn't be saved, and all this sort of stuff. So sometimes when we come to the course, we might encounter words that trigger us from some past. So part of the first few years for a course, me studying the course, was really undoing the prior meanings to things and coming to be really comfortable with the word. And even in my original book, I've actually crossed out words and written the word I liked. But after a while, I realised that I had to not resist anything and come to just use the word and use it in the way that Jesus is presenting it now, in a new way. So my salvation comes from me. My happiness comes from me. My peace comes from me. My freedom, my free mind comes from me. So salvation is now peace of mind, happiness, joy and freedom, a tranquil mind, he calls it. So that is salvation. Salvation is the peace of God. So that salvation and that peace and happiness comes from me, comes from my mind and nowhere else. So all temptation is nothing more than some form of the basic temptation not to believe the idea for today. So this whole talk is going to be about how we try to decide that salvation comes from anywhere else except from my mind, me, my thoughts. Salvation. Now, when I read this, I might, rather than the word salvation, I might actually use other words. I might actually use the word happiness, because if you've had some religious upbringing, you might, it's nice to read it this way so that you can really feel the change of it. Happiness seems to come from anywhere else except from you. So too does the source of guilt. You see neither guilt nor happiness as in your own mind and nowhere else. So in other words, we think guilt doesn't come from, is not in our mind, and that happiness is not in our mind. So what Jesus is doing here, he's pointing us inwards. He's telling us how we can change, what the problem is, and where the answer is. It's within us. It's in our mind. It comes from me in terms of, so this lesson ties in with responsibility for sight. I'm responsible for every emotion I feel because I have a choice. So I have a choice about which thoughts I listen to. My choice is the forgiveness, the miracle. So I've always got a choice. So before we come to A Course in Miracles, we're all caught up in the ego, and we might have had little glimpses of truth here and there, but what the Course does is it shows us a way out. It tells us where happiness is, salvation, freedom from pain and suffering, anxiety, depression. He says it's in your mind. Salvation, happiness, peace comes from me. So it empowers me to be in charge then. I'm in charge of my own happiness. So I'm responsible for how I feel. And this is really good news, right? It's really good news, because if I'm responsible, I can change it. Because if someone else is responsible for my happiness, then I'm forever trying to get them to change into something or someone that is going to make me happy. And therefore, I'm trying to control something that I can't control. So this is actually really good news. If I'm responsible, or if my salvation comes from me, it's within me. So, or as I says, all temptation is nothing more than some way to not believe today's idea. But if we can really say, okay, Jesus, you know You know how to, I'm in your course. I'm a student of your course, Jesus. You're in charge. You've written a book. You're not here in form, but you've given us this book. You've given us your words, and you're telling me, because I want to be happy. I want to be free. I want to be well. I want to be healed. I want to have the peace of God. So he's now giving us these directions of a way out of where we are. Now, he was there too. He was stuck, and he was given a way out, and now he's come to give us the way out. When you realise that all guilt is solely an invention of your mind, you also realise that guilt and salvation must be in the same place. So guilt is in my mind and salvation is in my mind. So we think about all the teachings of the course, God is mind. So the whole course is talking about our mind. It's not talking about anything outside us. It's always talking about two thought systems, the ego thought system and the Holy Spirit thought system, the thoughts of God, which is just this beingness of God, this infinite love that created us, that when we're in the ego mind, we've got no awareness of. We're totally got no awareness of something that is in our mind. It's completely blocked off. We've got blocks that block the awareness of truth. So we have to undo these blocks. And this is a big block being removed. These are part of the blocks. Just accepting that the problem is the ego thought system, which we're going to talk about in a minute. It's just coming to really accept this idea in the way Jesus is presenting it can help us, because we so want to say that the problem is outside us and not our mind. So we have to keep bringing it back. No, my salvation comes from me. And you have to be really vigilant, because the ego is always going to come in and tell you that salvation comes from something changing outside of you. So the seemingly cost of accepting today's idea is this. It means that nothing outside yourself can save you. In other words, nothing outside of you can bring you happiness, can bring you freedom. This is an all or nothing. Nothing outside of you can save you. Nothing. It's just absolute, like these rules or these ideas in A Course in Miracles are 100%. There's just, you can't say, yes, but my vitamin C saves me. There's nothing. There's nothing outside you that can bring you happiness, that can give you health, can keep you in a beautiful place of tranquil peace. Nothing. So that's the cost. If you accept today's idea, this is the cost, is you have to say there's absolutely not one thing outside me that's going to save me, that's going to make me happy. Lasting, changeless peace and happiness. But it also means that nothing outside yourself can hurt you. So if nothing outside can make me happy, it's the same. Nothing outside of me can hurt me, harm me, make me upset, cause me to be depressed, cause me to be anxious. But it also, but it also means that nothing outside yourself can hurt you or disturb your peace or upset you in any way. Today's idea places you in charge of the universe, which just means places you in charge of everything. It puts you in charge, because if nothing outside you can harm you or hurt you or bring you happiness, and you go within and you say, my happiness, my salvation is within me, it's within my mind, then you're in charge. You're now fully responsible for the choice that you make. So this empowers you. This brings a really good feeling. It should bring you a feeling of happiness, because it means there's a way out. It means there's a way for you to know that even when you get sick or you get depressed or anxious, you can remember this lesson to yourself and say, actually, I'm not a victim of the world I see. I have a choice. Now, it may take you a couple of days once you've even thought that, no, that's right. I remember Jesus says, the Course says, that my salvation comes from me. But it means that whenever you're really down and out, whenever you're overwhelmed, whenever you find you're sick or fearful or whatever, this lesson really reminds you that there is a way out. You're not a victim. If you're lying in a hospital bed sick, or you're in a lot of pain, or you're in a psych ward with anxiety, if you know this, you can start to slowly turn it around. It may not happen overnight, but it starts to turn you around a little bit and say, actually, let me look at what he tells me why I'm upset. Okay, so I'm now going to go to lesson 71 and talk about let's tease out this, how I can be saved, how I can have a happy, peaceful mind. So only God's plan for salvation will work. So let's have a look at the ego's plan, and let's have a look at God's plan. And Jesus is saying that only one plan will work. So the ego has its plan. Now we have to look at this ego plan. You have to really look deeply at the ego's plan, because that's the only way you come to the conclusion yourself, through investigation, through inquiry, whether it works or not. So if someone had a plan to build a house and it was never going to ever build the house, would you want to look at it and say, this isn't going to work? So what happens is we're in an ego's plan for happiness that never, ever, ever works, right? And the ego does have a plan for happiness. It has a plan. Jesus says, it says, if you follow this plan, you will be happy. So it's like it's a lie, right? That's a lie, because it never actually leads to happiness. But what happens is the ego will continually tell you that, right? No matter, even though it's always failed, the ego always comes back and says, yes, but let's try this. And then let's try that. But what happens is Jesus is asking us to take some time out, really sit quietly, really say, has the ego's plan ever worked? Because it has a plan. It's really important to remember, to really, like, you have to take these very serious, these teachings as they're presented. If you take them seriously and do them as he asks you to do, which is sort of what we're going through today, you can really come to your own conclusion. Because people can tell you, oh, the ego's plan has got a plan and it won't work. But it's the moment that you see it that it changes you. Because once you see that this plan never works, nothing can ever convince you again that it will work. And we have to see that it doesn't work. So from paragraph 2, the ego's plan for salvation centres around holding grievances. Okay. It maintains that if someone else spoke or acted differently, if some external circumstance or event were changed, you would be saved. You would be happy. You would be free. You would feel great. You would be awesome. Yay, if something were different outside of me, it'd be great. Wow. Just if that one person would just do something else. If this lockdown finished, or this, this coronavirus would piss off, oh God, I'd be so happy. It's just this, I'm speaking in very layman's terms because this is how we think, right? Let's not glorify it. Let's not, he says, don't call it by another name. Really look, really be honest. What am I thinking about this? So let's be clear. The ego's plan is a grievance. And now it's really important to take the time to say, what is a grievance? So the ego's plan is a grievance. That's its plan for your happiness. A grievance is wanting something outside you, someone else to change, some situation or some event to change. That's a grievance. And it says, the ego says, if the people at work were better, if I had more money, everything, it tells you that happiness lies in something outside you changing. Now, because we're all in the ego thought system, we all can see that that's what we think, right? So for today's inquiry, I'd like you to write down, so just let me sort of preface something first. You don't have to do writing if you don't want to. You can just think about the answers to yourself. But I would encourage you to write it down, because I felt when I did all my inquiry, writing it down really helped me. I don't know, it just sort of seemed to shift it easier and quicker, especially in the early days. So when you write down these answers, just remember you can rip up the piece of paper and throw it out. You can burn it. You're not reading anything out today. This is for you. This is just for you to become aware of what's in your mind, to shine a spotlight on the ego's plan for your happiness. So I want you to think about anyone in your life that you have now that you want them to speak or act differently. If you just the thoughts that, even it's the tiniest thing, even if it's something like it doesn't matter, it's just whatever you want that person to do differently. Any actions you think they should do, it's even the slightest thing, and just keep writing, and I'll maybe give 5 minutes, 5 or 10 minutes, and just empty out all the rubbish. No one's going to look at it except you. So think about, keep writing, keep going with this. Think about your parents, your children, brothers and sisters, other family members, uncles, aunts, cousins. Think about work colleagues. Think about other people in the Zoom groups. Think about your Zoom group teachers or Course in Miracles teachers, anyone that you listen to or you've discussed in groups or you've thought about where you think a teacher should be different. Friends, partners. Politicians, neighbours in your community. You might have a neighbour from hell. That's what a lot of people have issues with neighbours. And I went through that too. I had a neighbour. I've talked a lot about that in my past talks. So, no, we have to be really honest with how our ideas. So try to be as honest as you can. Don't try to be spiritual and nice. In this example, just really be what you really feel. Like if you really, really feel a lot of hatred, it's okay, because the ego is hatred. It is intense, murderous rage, right? That's why we feel so upset, because we're in the ego's plan. Okay, and the ego hates everyone and hates us. So it's a thought system of hatred. So you don't have to try to be nice. The more you can get in touch with this hidden hatred, the better, because we will do a visualization after this to release it, okay? So it's just to get in touch with this hatred of how we want someone else to change. We really want someone else to be different. Yeah, it's a choking rage, Sarah says. So yeah, sure, it's actually really important to get in touch with that, because we're hiding it. We're trying to live with this rage and murderous rage and hatred of ourselves and others. And we're trying to put a lid on it all the time, and it doesn't go away. It festers, right? Oops. Okay, so now I want you to write about some external circumstance or event were changed, you would feel happy. So you might even just say, you know, I'm really, really sick and tired of coronavirus. I want that to change. Like really just write, you know, about your feelings or your thoughts about anything outside of you, anything you feel about the, you know, you might not care about the coronavirus. You might be concerned about climate change or something else. So we're not judging what it is, but what we're trying to do is trying to see that these are thoughts, that the crux of the bottom of these thoughts, the base of these thoughts, are that I will be happy when something outside me changes. That's what we're trying to get to. We're trying to pull the lid off. He says, get to the hidden hatred and secret sins. So we're trying to sort of get to that today. You might love lockdown. You might hate it. I mean, we're in a continuous lockdown. It doesn't bother me, but because I don't have any thoughts that want something to change anymore. But I did, right? I suffered from the same beliefs and thoughts. So, and I did this inquiry very deeply. And it's not just for today. Anytime you get upset, you can really sit down and identify the grievance. So these are all grievances, right? This is what he calls as a grievance. So I'll give you a few more minutes to write down any situation. You might even want a situation at work change. You might want a different house. You might want to live somewhere else. You might want different weather. Okay, so if you've written all the things out, all the situation and events, let's now look at the body. So how do you want your body to be different? Are you waiting for something to change? Are you hoping that if something changes in your body, you'll then be happy, that you'll be saved? So you've probably opened Pandora's box, right? And said, "Holy moly! Look at all these thoughts and ideas and beliefs, all these grievances, right?" So you start to become aware of so many things that you want changed to be happy. So this is a really good inquiry if you do find yourself sick or anxious or depressed, or you can start to inquire, what am I now, right now? What is the really big focus in my mind about that something should change outside of me? And if you can identify that, you can then do an application of forgiveness on it and become free of it. So I want you to stop writing now if you can, or finish off, and then when you finish, just look at the screen so I can see that you've finished writing. You can continue this. You can listen to it again, or you've got the book, you've got the lesson there, you can see the instructions. He's asked us to become aware of these things. So let's just close our eyes, and I'm going to do a forgiveness application on this that you can follow along. All right? So close your eyes. Just sink down a little bit. Let's try to sink down. I want you to sort of get everything that you just wrote down. You just sort of hold it as like a ball of blackness, you could say, in your hands. It's just have it represented by something in your mind. Just all this stuff that you want to be different, right? Just hold it like I'm holding on to all this rubbish. I'm really holding on to this plan, all these thoughts that this needs to change, that he needs to do this, or she needs to be like this, or this situation needs to change. I'm now holding this, and I'm really, really willing to let it go. Because if freedom lies in not having these thoughts and beliefs about this, if my freedom and happiness and peace comes from not holding on to these ideas and beliefs, then I choose that I don't want these. If these beliefs are holding me in hell, these are grievances. This is what a grievance is. And I now choose, I want freedom, I want peace of mind rather than these. So see yourself releasing them some way. Like I usually just push them up over my head and just like throw them, like cast them out. Holy Spirit, you have all these. You just take them. I don't want them anymore. I don't want those thoughts. I don't want those beliefs. I just give them over to you. I don't care about them. They're keeping me sick and tense and frustrated and angry. I want the peace of God. So feel yourself releasing them. Just even if you want to say out loud, I don't want them anymore. I let them go. Don't bring them back. I want to be free of these things. And feel yourself really like fully casting them out, right? Now sit quietly and just keep saying, I don't want those thoughts anymore. I don't want them. I want to be peaceful. I want to be happy. And if those thoughts are keeping me in hell, they're keeping me upset and annoyed and sad and depressed, just don't want them. Holy Spirit, bring me the truth now. Bring me the true thoughts into my mind that will help keep me in peace. Holy Spirit, I want your thoughts. You are this beautiful, holy mind that is tranquil and peaceful and loving and kind. I want that. I really want that. So now I want you to sit quietly for the next 5 minutes, and I want you to just open your mind to the Holy Spirit's correction. Like he might just come in, you might just feel some lightness, you might feel an opening, you might feel just something. So let's just sit quietly together for 5 minutes and just open up to something new. Okay, so let me just once again read about the ego's plan, right? So I just want to say, Ashley, your picture, you've got a lot of light coming streaming down onto you, right? So I don't know whether you've had some sort of really clear, something that's really cleared in that moment, but that's usually, sometimes you'll get some light coming in like that as a symbol, but it's not necessarily. Just hang on, I've got to let my dog in. Come on. Oh. So if you're feeling any different right now from how you felt before when you were writing all those thoughts down, you've done forgiveness, right? If you've had a lightness, now it may not have all have gone, you might find there might be even a 20% change in how you feel. It really, this forgiveness process is really identifying. So you can really identify all the thoughts, the grievances, and the thoughts that you hold of the ego. So you can start to see that these are the ego's grievances. Hang on a tick. What's wrong, lovey? Come on. You did. There you go. Lie down there. Good girl. So the forgiveness process. So this is the forgiveness process I use the whole time, really. I mean, I did other things, but this was the main crux of it, was to identify the grievance and really give it, because this links in with the lesson, I want the peace of God, and I always add in, above all else. If you want a tranquil mind, you've got the ego, you can't, it's not a matter of stopping the ego, or you don't have to fight the ego. It's a matter of identifying it and letting it go and having it replaced by your true thoughts. So the issue here is when you identify those thoughts, is, am I willing to let them go? Now, that's the key part of that forgiveness process, is if you felt any reluctance to let those grievances go, that's the point in that forgiveness process, is when you need to, if you're finding that you don't want to let it go and you want to hang on to the grievance, it's like a point where you come to, do I want to be happy or do I want to be right? And really it's, do I want to stay in hell? Do I want to suffer? Because the ego's sort of, its plan, which is holding this grievance, is to always say that somebody else should change or some situation should be different. Now, what we can really look at is that if we're waiting around for someone else to change or some situation to change for us to be happy, we can really easily identify that those things probably won't change, right? So we can start to say to ourselves, that plan won't work. I'll never really get to happiness by trying to get someone to change into how I want them to change. Now, this is really coming from a basic, a real sort of egoic, it's a real basic start, because that's how the ego is. It will pull you back into those grievances. So we're not talking about looking at the ego or identifying it, and just being able to look at it without judgment, because that will come when you start to do this work. You will start to get to that. But we're sort of going back right at the bottom of the ladder, where Jesus is presenting it as it is. We think we're a body, we think we're in a world, we think there's others, we think they should change for us to be happy. So he's really getting down to the nitty-gritty of where, and we all have to start there, because we think we're bodies, we think we're in a world outside us, we think the world can hurt us, we think something or someone or some situation should change. And it's no use trying to act spiritual on the top of the ladder, because all it does is delay. You have to get down in the nitty-gritties. You have to be really honest and say, hey, I'm really feeling upset with my neighbour, my mum, my dad, and really get down to that rage, that hatred, that murderous rage that he says we all have. And in that, we start to, as we do these forgiveness lessons, this forgiveness process, we start to see that we can be free of it. So the ego's plan that someone else or some event should change for me to be happy, we can really see that it doesn't work, right? So on that page, all that stuff that you've written out, it would be impossible for all those things to change. So if you're putting off your happiness for all that stuff to happen, you'll never get to happiness, right? You have to see that. You have to see it for yourself. So you've had a good look at it, right? You've gone, this is the contents of my mind. This is what I'm hoping. I'm waiting for my neighbour to quieten down, stop playing music or move out. So I'm putting off my happiness. I'm waiting for something to change. I'm waiting for a new job, or you even might be waiting for the coronavirus to finish, and they're going, oh, we don't know, there's new variants and this and that. You're like, oh, I'll be able to rest and be peaceful when all this is over and done with. And then they're like, get a vaccine. You're like, yay, something outside me is going to bring happiness. Oh, yes, but, the new variants may not work with it. Oh, I can't be happy yet. So we have to really, it's really important not to spiritualize this journey. It's really important to really say, this is the contents of my mind, and really speak your own language. And even if you want to swear when you write out, like, use the swearing. Don't filter it, because what we're trying to do is through these processes, we're going to have these aha moments, and it may not come right today when we're doing this, but it'll come later on, because doing these processes as over the next few weeks, you might have some really big moments of aha, right? That's just like something lands in your mind and you're like, oh, I get it. I see it. Oh, I see these grievances are keeping me in hell. So Jesus says that the ego's plan has to be looked at, and he's asking us to do it. And he really says that each grievance you hold is a declaration and an assertion in which you believe, if this were different, I would be saved. So the change of mind necessary for salvation, in other words, the change of mind necessary for my happiness, is thus demanded that everybody and everything needs to change except me, except my mind. So this ego's plan is saying that everything and everyone needs to change somehow, but not me. It's all out there that needs to change, and never my mind. That's the ego's plan. Okay. So the role assigned to your mind in the ego's plan is simply to determine what other than my mind must change if I want to be happy. So it just means the ego says, other than me, I don't need to change. The ego will never say you need to change your mind. It'll always say something or some situation needs to change. That's its plan. So when you feel that something outside you or some situation or a person needs to change, you're in the ego's plan. And then you have to tell yourself, this plan never leads to happiness. No matter how many times I get dragged back into the ego's plan, it never leads to happiness. Never. Not once does it lead to happiness. You can imagine that Holy Spirit showed me a little mouse running on a wheel. He said, that's what you're in. That's the ego's plan. When you're trying to find happiness, you're going round and round in a circle. You're doing all this stuff. You're talking about, hey, I reckon this should change. I think this politician should do this. You listen to lots of things, lots of people talking about, and I'm not saying everybody does this, but this is what happens, right? It's you'll be tempted to say, hang on a minute, you'll just be tempted into reading something or listening to someone that says, right, we need to do this, we need to, bloody blah, blah, whatever. It's all blah, blah, right? when anyone's saying anything, that something should change outside ourselves. According to this insane plan, any perceived source of happiness is acceptable, provided that it will not work. It's funny. It's funny how we never really look and see that it doesn't work. I mean, I couldn't believe it when I got to, in my late 40s and early 50s, when I started to read the course and start to see that nothing I'd ever tried to do, I'd sought happiness outside myself for 50 years. And I thought, I've just spent 50 years searching for happiness outside me and I've never got it. It's never happened. I'd sought relationships and jobs and holidays and cars and houses and everything. And tried to get everyone to change. Okay, Daniela has to leave. But anyway, it's on thanks, Daniela. Thanks for your kind words. So this will be on a recording if you want to listen in. So, so this is what we have to see. We have to just look back and just forgive it, right? Just let it go and say, okay, look, if I've spent 50, wherever you are, however old you are, just say, look, I've spent all these years trying to get everything outside me to change. And now I'm so grateful that there's a way home, right? So he's telling me you'll be tempted and seduced by thinking some person or some situation needs to be changed. That's all. It's like, now you know. Once you know, you can't unknow it, right? You might forget it. You might get pulled in. Oh, gosh, I've been 3 days thinking that, my neighbour should change again. As soon as you remember, you can just say, that plan that my neighbour should change for me to be happy doesn't work, because all it does is it brings a grievance. I'm now living in a grievance. And so one thing, Jesus having a bit of a laugh here, I think, when he wrote that sentence, according to this insane plan, any perceived source of happiness is acceptable, provided that it will not work. This ensures that the fruitless search will continue. It's a fruitless search. We're constantly searching. Like before the coronavirus, it was something else, right? It was, something else. It's one thing we've got to learn is that nothing changes in this world. because this world was set up. We can't see it as yet. You might, I don't know how much insight you've had from working with the Holy Spirit, Jesus within you, and with the course. But we've been told that we're in a world that never works. It never works. Nothing is ever going to work here. It was set up as an attack on God, a place that we could hide out. But even if you think, oh, well, that sounds weird, Cate. I don't feel that. I don't feel that. But that's all right. That will become evident as you go deeper into your mind. You'll start to see. So we have to this is why we have to do this inquiry ourselves, because teachers can tell you to the cows come home the truth. You can read it in the course, but you have to do your own inquiry. And this is what we're doing today. We're trying to come to slow down and spend a little bit of time looking and listening to Jesus's words. And Justin says he calls it a fruitless search. This ensures that the fruitless search will continue, for the illusion persists that although this hope has always failed, so the hope that something will change has always failed, there is still grounds for hope in other places, in other things. So what he means by that is what I was talking about before, and this is what we have to recognise, is even when we don't find the happiness or the peace or the change in the current, say we meet a new friend, or we get a Course in Miracles buddy, or we meet someone new, or a new work situation or something, and we think, oh great, this thing, this person, this situation outside of me, or this person outside of me is going to be wonderful, it's going to be great, it's going to be, and this is the way the ego sets up happiness outside ourselves, and then it fails, and then we say, okay, it didn't work, this person's not really quite right for me, rah, rah, rah. So we push them aside, and this is the ego puts up hope that some other person or some other situation will work, will bring us happiness. So this is what he's saying, that that there is still grounds for hope. So we still harbour this little idea, this ego is still whispering in our minds. There's hope in other places or in other things, right? So we have to become really vigilant. So doing the course is really about, it's in the end, it's an all day, 24/7, a really good practice. I mean, you will wander off, but if you can make it your sort of life's work, you can start to notice, oh yes, okay, oh, now I'm starting to think that if I get this new car, I'll be happier, or when my parents come to visit, or when we open up and we can all talk again, or we can go to the beach, or we can travel interstate, or, internationally. So it's just going to be all good. So there's this little idea still within the ego's whispers of hope of something else. Now, we have to be vigilant for that too, because you'll get caught. It's like the ego's like a seducer. It's seducing you with these lies, right? And he says in the next lesson that this plan, these ideas, it's a grievance actually, but we don't see it as a grievance. What it's doing, it's attacking God's plan. He says that it's actually an attack on God's plan. And why would Jesus say it's an attack on God's plan? Well, you could say that it's, how could you say? It's like, if we're in that plan, we're not in God's plan. So even though we may not sort of think, it feels like it's attacking God's plan, what we're really saying, what's really happening is when we're in that plan, that ego's plan, those thoughts, those grievances, those ideas, that if something would change outside of me, and this little whisper of hope, yeah, but, you know, okay, I'll let go of all this coronavirus stuff, but I'll still search for my soulmate, right? Okay, that's the little whisper. There's my soulmate. There's a Course in Miracles soulmate somewhere outside. You know, this perfect person that's practicing a Course in Miracles really well, or whatever it is. We have to be aware of that seductive voice within us that's constant. If you even the slightest idea the weather is going to make me happy, you know, anything outside of me, it's a seduction. It's like a little thing. The ego's trying to bring some hope, still trying to seduce you with that there's something outside of you that can make you happy. Now, we're not guilty if we keep falling for it, because I was falling for it all the time. You know, I was just, but we do, because we have the ego's voice. So how we undo the ego is we're looking at it, like looking at it, what we're doing today, seeing the ego's plan, like really laying it out, like me talking about it, really like putting it right in front of you. It's not hidden anymore. The ego never wants you to bring it out, say, write about the ego's plan. Here it is. Has it ever worked? No, it's never worked. Why am I still following it? I need to give up the ego's plan. And so the way the ego's plan attacks God's plan is that it's a plan that never works. It really is basically that if I'm in the ego's plan, I'm not in God's plan. I'm not in, and when we say God's plan, it's not like God has a plan, because God is peace and happiness now. But the ego always says peace and happiness will come when something or something else changes. Do you see? But God's plan is a beingness now. It's happiness now. So when you lifted all that rubbish up and you said, I don't want it anymore, there was no plan. There was no, okay, you've got to do this now to be happy. There was just a beingness of lightness and happiness. So it's like, even to say God's plan for salvation, it's, you could say God's beingness, just being happy now. You know, this because that's what God is. It's being happy and peace right now, sitting in that light and being in that light. So there is a plan of atonement, which is where, you know, as this beingness, as having this light and love, that he will now direct us what to do and what to say and where to go. But that's sort of just, you could say, guidance on it, of where to take your light and where to shine your light, and he will tell us how to do that. Just like today, me doing this group, this is the plan of atonement, you could say, in that I've done my inner work. I've written out all the rubbish the ego's plan was in my mind. I had to see it never worked. So why do I keep wanting to do stuff that, and, you know, how do I feel? How do I feel when I'm in that plan? Oh, it was awful. And in fact, the more you come into the light, the more the ego's plan is horrible. We tolerate so much suffering by being in the ego's plan, holding those grievances. It's awful. I mean, I was really sick mentally and physically. And so I know when people talk to me about mental suffering, you know, depression, anxiety, fear, and then pain. I had, you know, chronic fatigue. I had pain all through my body. You know, I've experienced both aspects of the hell of the ego's thought system. So I can identify really well, I don't have any of that anymore, right? I'm completely free of those things because I've done this. I just did it the way he told me. I wasn't, all I was willing and ready to learn. And I just came to say this is a book that says I can come to the peace of God. I can have a free mind. So what do I need to do? I really need to look at these lessons like we're doing today. I need to not just quickly read it. I've got to get to work. Oh, gosh, I have to do my lesson and tick that box. So I quickly read it, tick it. Yes, I've done my lesson, and off I go into my life. I have to give this the most important part of my day is the lesson. And then the most important aspect of the day is repeating the lesson, doing it as he says. That's the most important thing for me every day, or was. I don't do them, so, I don't do them. I don't need to do them because I've done them. But during my mind training period, my job, my relationships, everything came second to this. I had to apply the teachings to what was going on. And then the peace of God, peace started, glimmers of peace, feeling, because I was doing forgiveness, right? So another person, so this is finishing off on the ego's plan. No one really wants to hear about it anymore because like, right, we're done with that, Cate, don't talk about it. Okay, so such is the ego's plan for your salvation. This is what Jesus is saying here. This is it, right? He's saying, I'm showing it to you. You got a choice. Do you want to look at it? Do you want to be free? I'm showing it to you now. Decide, because the previous lesson is that this is my choice. He doesn't just say, hey, you've got your everything's within you. He gives us this way of being free. So he's getting us to look, release it all. Okay, I don't want all those grievances. I'll let them go. Holding a grievance is an attack on God's plan. Well, right, because God's plan is for me to be happy right now. If I'm holding a grievance, I can't be happy. So God's plan for my happiness is that I be happy, that I just sit here right now and be happy. That's all God's plan is, because he created me as this infinite being of light and love. So it's an attack on it, or it changes his plan when I hold a grievance. Surely you can see how it is in strict accord with the ego's basic doctrine, seek it but do not find. So I hope you've had a clearer seeing of seek and do not find today. For what could more surely guarantee that you will not find happiness than to channelize all your efforts in searching for it where it is not? God's plan for salvation works simply because by following his direction, you seek for salvation where it is. In my mind, so I go to God, the peace and happiness is within me. I have everything within me. Otherwise, your purpose is divided and you will attempt to follow two plans for salvation that are diametrically opposed in all ways. So you start to see, we've really looked at both plans today, start to see, and trying to follow both, it really mixes it up, right? It's really tough trying to follow God's plan. Okay, I'm just going to sit and be happy. I'm just going to feel this light and love today and sprinkle my happiness and love everywhere. And then I'm actually going to find something, someone or some situation that I want to change. So the minute I go into that something should be different, I'm not sitting in love and light. All that joy and peace and happiness is gone out the window the minute I hold a grievance. So the minute you hold a grievance that you want someone or something to change, just do the forgiveness. Holy Spirit, I give this grievance. Oh, I've just identified. I was feeling horrible. I was feeling upset. I was feeling irritated. And I wrote down, oh, I want such and such to change. Right. Well, I let that go and I live now. I live in what is. I accept everything as it is, because nothing outside me can harm me. In other words, nothing outside can take my peace away, because harming me is taking my peace away. So I think it's time to finish. I really feel like that's enough. So I hope you really enjoyed this today. I'll be bringing a few more lessons in and expanding out on them in very layman's terms, so we can really see and, you know, really look at this and really it's so that it makes it easier for you to identify the ego's plan. Okay, so now I'm going to do a little meditation, and this meditation goes for 15 minutes. So I'm just going to put my timer on. And I'm going to give you some instruction, but you might choose to just sit quietly, because we've done quite a little, you know, quite a lot of bringing up some things that really have got a lot of charge to them. I saw a few people crying. So you might just want to just sit in silence, and you know, you might just want to repeat, my salvation comes from me. You can do that if that's what you want. But Jesus has a meditation in lesson 70. So, or you might just want to sit with, you know, just focus on your breath. So I want you to decide for yourself in this, okay? I'll give instruction, but you do. You're not guilty if you're not following the instructions. Okay, so never feel you have to do anything here. It's totally up to what you feel. So just feel within, okay? So we're just going to sit quietly for 15 minutes. And so this is the, you can mute me if you don't want to hear the instructions for this particular meditation. Now we will try again to reach the light in you, which is where your salvation is. You cannot find it in the clouds that surround the light. And it is in them that you have been looking for it. So these clouds are really just the ego's thoughts, right? They're symbolised, so it's sort of like dark clouds around our mind. So the light is not in those clouds. It is past the clouds to the light beyond. Remember that you will have to go through the clouds before you can reach the light. But remember also that you have never found anything in the cloud patterns you imagined, that endured, or that you wanted. Since all illusions of salvation, all illusions of happiness have failed you, surely you do not want to remain in the clouds, looking vainly for idols there, when you could so easily walk on into the light of real salvation. Try to pass the clouds by, whatever means appeals to you. If it helps you, think of me, that being Jesus, or you could even think of me, Cate, holding your hand and leading you on. And I assure you that this will be no idle fantasy. So we've got 2 minutes to go. So just spend the next 2 minutes repeating, my salvation comes from me. It cannot come from anywhere else. Okay. So thank you, everybody, for joining today. Just remember our salvation comes from us. It doesn't come from anywhere else. The ego's got its own plan and it won't work. You have to investigate for yourself how it hasn't worked. You have to be vigilant to notice the thoughts that whisper this little hope that something outside of you is going to bring you happiness. We're each part of that, right? We're all doing it together as a group, but individually. We need to really be vigilant again about what we've discussed today, become more and more aware of the thoughts that tell us that something needs to be changed outside of us for us to be happy. So it's been wonderful to present these teachings today and to join you all. Let's do a little blessing. If you'd like to unmute your microphones. And it doesn't matter if we all speak together. It's we can just bless each other. Just say anything that comes to your mind. I'm just going to say, I love you. I bless you. I honour you.
I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
That was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
I bless you. I love you. I thank you.
Thank you.
I love you all.
Thank
Love
you,
you all.
everybody. It was
Bye,
beautiful.
Cate.
My happiness comes from me.
That's wonderful. I'll see you next week, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Love you all.
Absolutely
Bye.
magnificent. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.